What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm coming at you with an updated Rikka deck profile for the brand new ban list. Going into the new format, Rikka itself, as far as its engine, did not change any. There were no hits on the list that directly affect Rikka. However, the format around it has changed to where the list has to change to sort of adapt to what we think we're going to be seeing more of in this current format. Decks like Sprite took a pretty big hit, and therefore Tier Element are looking to be the #1 threat. So keep in mind as I go through this profile that it is sort of designed to beat what we expect to be a very heavy, dominant Tier Element meta. Before we get into the profile, I do want to let you guys know, Discord link down below along with all of our other social media links. Also, I'm trying to hit 20,000 subscribers, so if you do like this Yu-Gi-Oh content, you enjoy what you see here, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out in what I do here on the channel. And without further ado, let's hop into this Rikka Sunavalon deck profile. Alright, so starting off, we are going to start off with 3 Rikka Petal. Of course, this is a card I still want to leave at 3. There's been a couple of changes to the Rikka engine since my last build. And that sort of has to do with the format changes, but 3 Rikka Petal is very standard. She's just like your main Rikka starter, and she's follow-up in and of herself, so that is very useful as well. Then we have 2 Rikka Princess. I'm playing this at 2 like I was in my last list, down from 3. And it's just because, again, she recycles herself, so you can afford to play 2 and then fit room for other things. That's a big sort of theme with this version of the list, is I had to cut space for more flex spots, and I'll sort of get to that near the end of the profile. But yeah, we are sticking with the 2 Rikka Princess. 2 Primula, the Rikka Fairy. Primula is still a card I like to play at 2. I've seen a couple of people cut it down to 1, and they'll either play a carrot weight in sort of the place of the second one, or they just will only play 1 like level 4. That's like an additional level 4 to search off of Glamour. Me personally, I feel like 2 is still mandatory. The second one comes up for me so often in grind games. As well as just like if you draw 1, you want to have something in deck you can search off Glamour so that you can tribute with Glamour and then be able to proc your Primula. So I always feel like 2 Primula is very nice, and I really enjoy the second one over something like a carrot weight, because if I draw Primula and the field spell, at least my hand is somewhat playable, while that sort of synergy does not exist with the carrot that you can play in the place of the second Primula. So I very much enjoy 2. Now, something I have bumped up in the engine is I am now currently on triple Mudon. Now, this is something that I was sort of staying away from when I was first building the deck, because you don't want to draw too many high-level monsters that make your hand unplayable, right? Like Mudon. However, Mudon is a card that really allows you to play through interruptions very, very well, and is also one of the best things to combo alongside your field spell as sort of a board breaker. And Mudon is something I feel like I hear a lot of Rikka players talk about moving to 3, and then it's like never actually done. And I'm testing it at 3. It has worked pretty nicely for me. Of course, in my last list where I tested 3 Mudon, I also had like an elevated count of the field spell to where like I could more see the engine as a board breaker, and 3 Mudon was a big part of that. Now, like, I'm still running 3 because it plays through interrupts extremely well, and it's a fantastic card. But if it does end up being sort of the, like, I draw too many high-level monsters and can't play, she can easily come back down to 2, so sort of your own opinion you can weigh in on there and decide if you want to play 2 or 3. 1, Snowdrop. This is still something you want to play at 1, mostly because she requires another plant monster in hand to be good, so she doesn't really do anything. Like, even with a starter sometimes, like if you draw a Snowdrop and like Petal, if Petal gets hand trapped, you know, Snowdrop does nothing, unlike Mudon, right? So we're just on the 1 Snowdrop. Very important engine piece for the deck, but not something you really have to max out on. For Rikka spells, I am on 3 Rikka Konkon, and this is still something I want to play at 3. In my last list, and when I was talking about an elevated count of the field spell, I was also playing a Terraforming, which I have now taken out, which is sort of a meta call for the fact that Tier Elements are often going for Eradicator that calls spells, or they're going for Spell Canceller, and it makes spell cards less good, and that's sort of a theme I've taken with this list. However, 3 Field Spell is something I still really enjoy, because not only is it just the most powerful card in your deck that allows you to tribute your opponent's monsters, but it's also like a really good starter or extender depending on the situation. Like, as a starter, you still need to see a Rikka monster, but it can be something like a Primula or a Snow Princess that does nothing on its own and still allow you to get to your Glamour. But like, also, if you just summon Petal and you get hand trapped on effect, you can like play the field spell and play anyways, so it's a nice like extender and starter as well, while being like your most powerful card. And I want to maximize it at 3, partly because it makes your engine go second extremely well, which is something I really like, is that this deck's engine can go second, which is huge. 3, Rikka Glamour. This is just your Rhoda, so it's something we're definitely going to be maximizing at 3. It's just one of your 1-card starters because Petal is some semblance of 1-card combo. But it also just has so much utility in the fact that it can search like multiple different cards. It's a very, very powerful Rhoda type card, so we're going to maximize it. And the last card in the Rikka engine is the one Rikka Sheet, which is just like arguably the best trap you can play with the Rikka engine. Like Tranquility is okay, but most people will opt to play Sheet because it's sort of like a double interruption. Being able to tribute your opponent's monsters to take your opponent's monsters is a very, very powerful form of interrupt. And yeah, Rikka Sheet is definitely a card you want to be playing just because it gives your field spell a little bit more power in what it can do. Alright, now for the Sun Avalon part of the deck, I'm still only on 2 Loci. I don't feel like playing 3 is correct because you'll just end up with like too many normal summons. Like a big deal for this deck is drawing way too many normal summons. When you're on something like 3 Petal, 3 Loci, and then multiple Lone Fire, you definitely just have way too many normal summons in hand sometimes. So 2 Loci works perfectly. You need 2 in your deck for your engine, but you don't really need any more past that. So 2 works fine for me, and then I am, of course, on the 1 Sunseed Twin, which is very important for your sowing that you search off of your Dryas. And this is sort of like part of your Sunseed engine. Then the best card in the package is by far Unexpected Die, because this is just like emergency teleport for your Loci, which allows you to play without using your normal summon, or, you know, play into a board more easily because your opponent has to use more like interruptions on your plays. Because if this deck didn't have something like Unexpected Die, then you would just like normal summon and get Book of Moon and be in a pretty terrible spot unless you had Mood on or something to keep playing. But yeah, Unexpected Die is a very powerful way to go second and go first because it just lets you play through more, right? I mean, emergency teleport cards are very, very powerful, and this being a 1-card full combo without normal summon is amazing. Then we have some cards that work very nicely with both engines, and sort of in the same vein as Unexpected Die, we have 1 for 1, which is essentially Unexpected Die, except it takes a monster in your hand, so it's not like a 1-card combo, it's like a 1.5 card combo. But it also, in certain situations, can get Petal, right? Like if you open Petal, this searches Loci, and if you open Loci, this searches Petal. So it allows you to get into whichever part of the engine you're missing. So it's just another starter. And then we have the 1 Lone Fire, which again searches either Petal or Loci, so a starter that works with both engines in the deck. I don't want to play too many of this because there are times, again, where you just draw too many normal summons in this deck. And also Lone Fire is like one of the most easily interrupted forms of starting because Ash Blossom obviously hurts tremendously on this card, but it's also weak to Veiler and Imperm as well, where a card like 1 for 1 only has 1 weakness, being Ash. So yeah, I don't think you want to play too many Lone Fire Blossom, and this is, I think, the best normal summon ratio in the deck to me is 3 Petal, 2 Loci, and 1 Lone Fire, because there are times you want this in deck, be it for your Dance Peony or just to like search off Jasmine. So I think this ratio works out really nice. 1 Called by the Grave, this is just like one of the most powerful cards in the game that should definitely be in your deck. It stops hand traps, it's one of the best interrupts, especially in a format with tier elements. There's definitely no reason to not be playing this card, especially in like a 40 card list like this. Alright, next up for the deck are sort of the defensive go second cards, and this is where I've sort of cut other cards I was playing to play different cards in this package. Like previously I was playing things like Triple Tactics Talents, Forbidden Droplets even, things like Prosperity to find really good cards, but again, the way the meta has shifted is more like playing around Spell Canceller and Eradicator. So I wanted definitely to fit more hand traps instead of board breakers, and I feel like this is where most lists should be shifting towards. Like if you were on Mystic Mines and you were on Droplets or main deck Dark Ruler, I feel like shifting to hand traps seems to be the correct play because you need to stop your tier element opponent from getting to Spell Canceller or to, you know, Erad. They're both pretty much the same card against this deck since you really only have spells besides the sheet. So yeah, going on into our defensive cards, which I've just sort of prefaced as being hand traps, I'm on 3 Ash Blossom, and Ash Blossom isn't very high impact this format, seemingly. It's really good versus Exo Sister and Floowandereeze, which is a reason I really wanted to play her, is those decks look fantastic. And this is a hand trap good against them. This is good against trap decks, which are a little better now because Reboot's banned. Against Tier Element, this card isn't great, but it can stop Curious, which is huge. I think things that stop Curious are some of the most important things right now in the meta, and Ash does fit that role. So we are on 3 Ash Blossom. And then I have decided to play 3 Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion. This card to me got a huge boost this format because the decks that are really good right now, like Tier Element, are extremely weak to this card. But also this can hit things like the Exosister matchup, where like Exosister has a pretty good matchup versus this deck, and it's a deck that looks to be very popular, and this can stop like Mikaelis banishes, which is really nice. Returnia banishes, because they can target either the field or graveyard. Belle is a very good defensive card, which is why I really like Belle. Not only is she offensive versus decks like Tier Elements, where you can stop their effects, however, you can also save yourself from opposing DD Crows, Called by the Grave, Returnias. Even Stree comes up in like the Fluandereeze matchup. This card is super insane. It's both an offensive and defensive option, which is why I have maxed it out. 3, DD Crow, and of course I am playing this because Tier Elements seem to be a huge threat. This card is not great versus some of the matchups you expect to play this format, like, of course, Fluandereeze and Exosister. However, one deck I failed to mention with Belle, but also works with Crow, so talking about sort of both of these now. Mathmech has always, to me, given this deck a small problem. Like, if you set up first, this deck is fine, but going into a Super Factorial is pretty difficult because like you want to play a field spell, a monster, and like you end up playing into like a 3-send Alimbertion pretty heavily. And of course, if they get like a 3-send Alimbertion with a negate, it is extremely hard to play through that. So I really like the 3 DD Crow and 3 Belle because it also helps in the Mathmech matchup, but obviously DD Crow is mostly here for Tier Elements. And then I have 3 Infinite Impermanence, which is just generically one of the best hand traps. It also doubles up as sort of a board breaker, as you can draw it like as a go second, like your 6th card. It doesn't play into tactics. It's just extremely good. If they don't have Elf protecting their spell canceller, this of course hits that. It stops Curious. So again, that's mostly what these hand traps are for, are to stop the FTK boards that Tier Elements are putting out right now. That is it for the 40 card main deck. Hopping into the extra deck, we are of course going to start with Triple Dryas. This is very standard. You want to be playing 3 of this just in case one gets stopped one turn and you need 2 for your next turn. I'm still on 2 Healer. You can choose to play Healer and Thrasher, and a lot of people like going for some Thrasher lines, but I find the second Healer to be super relevant because against Fluandereeze, Advent heals 500, and if you go through 2 healers, that heals 600, which can be very relevant in a tournament setting. For Link 2s, we have 1 Jasmine, which is one of your like biggest starters because, or like one of the most important cards in the extra deck, I'll say, because she like extends and she specials from deck, which is huge, getting you to the rest of your engine. Only 1 because the way I play my variant, it's not like the super heavy combo variant. Some lists you will find playing 2 Jasmine, but I just don't have room to fit that. And the other Link 2 I'm running is the 1 Dance Peony. This card is actually one of the most insane cards in the deck because if you just get like hand trapped to oblivion, you still might end up having full combo due to Dance Peony, which is huge. It's like a fantastic extender in your weak hands or hands where you get super interrupted. It's just an additional play, almost like a Verte Anaconda, where you've gotten hand trapped twice and you just funnel into this and she might help you continue your plays. 1 Malias and 1 Bangalancer. These are both necessary for your main Sun Avalon combo. For Xyz, we do have 3 Rikka Queen Strenna. This is probably the most important card in your extra deck besides like the stuff you're going for with your low side plays. Strenna is like your follow-up play as well as being one of your best forms of interrupt. This deck has always had like a pretty good time versus things like Dark Ruler no more, partly because of Strenna, because you can like end your board with this and they Dark Ruler you to get your other negates off the field, and then you tribute this on your opponent's turn and make another interruption that is now unaffected by that Dark Ruler. So Strenna is a card that for the grind game I really enjoy having 3 of, but it's also a card you want to be bare minimum playing 2 of. And then sort of for Strenna's targets or things you might end up making naturally, we have the Teardrop, which is super good as a quick effect, just detach, tribute a monster. Then we have the 1 Alsay, which I really like the Alsay because he's the only card in the extra deck that can actually handle spells and traps, like getting them off board, because everything else is really like monster focused interruptions. So having Alsay in the extra deck is huge because if they have like, I don't know, a face-up continuous spell like, I mean not D-Fissure in this situation, but like a face-up continuous spell Floodgate or a field spell Floodgate, or something like even the Punk field spell where you just really don't want them to have that gaining more advantage, that Alsay is sort of your answer to cards like that. Lastly, we have a Hyperion because you want to end your board with Hyperion with a spell under him, so you kind of have sort of mitigation against cards like Triple Tactics Talent or Lightning Storm or things that might be a problem for you. Hyperion is really the only spell negate the deck has, so you usually do your combo in a way that you will get a spell under Hyperion, but either way, he's just a really good strand to target as a monster negate and destroy as well, so this is sort of the rest of the extra deck. Alright, that is going to do it for this updated Rikka profile. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of Rikka this format, if there's any cards you're playing that are, different than my list, or any super cool techs you've been considering. Personally, I decided to go for like a very heavy hand trap variant instead of board breakers or rivalries or things that have been a little bit more popular in the past, due to the fact that tier limits are just putting up these insane boards, right? Also, if you are looking for a combo for this deck and you want to know how to play the deck, I do have a very dedicated video specifically to Rikka combos that I'll link down below. It's a full 30-minute video full of nothing but Rikka Sunavalon combos. So if you're interested on how to play this deck, I will link that down below and I recommend you check it out. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.